So the finals is finally here after it was actually shadow dropped at the Game Awards just last week, and today I'm going to be going through all of the settings you guys should be changing, or at the very least taking a look at and testing out to give yourself an advantage out there in the arena. There is a hell of a lot more content coming on the finals that is essentially going to be the focus of this channel moving forward, and so if you guys are interested in this game, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications so you don't miss out. With that being said, let's get stuck right into it. Now the first setting is actually the very first setting at the top of the settings list, and this one is the use enemy team colors. Now this for some reason was set to off by default for me, even though I'm pretty sure it is meant to be on. So this is one I thought I would just mention to kind of give you the warning that if it is turned off, you should have it turned on. What this will do is actually give the enemy outlines the color of their specific team rather than giving them the color of just a general enemy. So for example, if you turn this off, every enemy will just be red and you won't know what team they're from. However, if you have this turned on, for example, one of the enemy teams will be colored in red, one of them will be purple, for example, and it just helps you a lot when it comes to identifying which team is which. For example, if you need to stop the purple team from depositing their coins and you're looking at someone and you can see they're on the purple team, then you're obviously going to have a bit more knowledge and therefore be able to take that team out rather than focusing on the wrong team. So just check that that one is turned on, because for some reason mine was actually set to off by default. Now the next one on the list here is actually this one, the region. Most people are going to have this set to default or automatic. However, what I would say is actually be sure to change this to whichever region is closest to you. For example, because there's only 3 regions in this game, my actual region that I should be playing on is Asia. That is the closest one to Australia, and yet when I had it on automatic, it was setting it to Europe, which is by far the furthest of any of these regions. The Asian servers for me are around 100 ping on most games that I play. The North America servers are generally around 180 to 220, depending on whereabouts in America those servers are. And then generally speaking, the European servers are closer to that 300 mark. So for whatever reason, it was automatically putting me into the furthest region from where I am. And so I would just recommend to set this to the closest one so that you're going to get the best ping. That is most likely just a bug, so hopefully that is fixed eventually, but I would definitely still recommend changing this to the closest region to where you are. Now we're going to move on to the controller tab. Obviously you just want to set your sensitivity to whatever suits you the best. Don't try and copy mine just because it works for me. For example, it might be too fast or too slow for you, so just play around with this and try and get it to a spot that you like. What I will say though, for the zoom sensitivity multiplier, I think mine was actually set to 60 or at least 55 by default. To have a little bit more accuracy when you are aimed down sights, I would recommend changing this to 50. It is what it is in most other games, and this essentially means that when you are aimed down sights, the sensitivity will just be half of that when you are not aimed down sights, and that means that you can obviously kind of keep on track of those enemies a little bit easier. So I would recommend it at 50, but once again, just like the sensitivity, it is kind of subjective, so just give it a play around and see what suits you the best. Now when I started playing this game, the gameplay felt a little bit off in terms of the controller gameplay, and I found that it was to do with the sensitivity, and most specifically it was to do with this one right here. Now for some reason it was set to this setting, when in most other games it is either exponential or linear. This is once again kind of subjective. I've got mine set to exponential. What this essentially means is that if you hold down your right stick in terms of like aiming to the right constantly, then eventually it will speed up just a little bit. Whereas if you set it to linear, it will just go the same speed, as in your sensitivity will be exactly the same at all times. And this will kind of just start a little bit slower and then eventually get to the regular speed of your sensitivity. So I would recommend one of these 2 settings if you guys feel like your aim is a little bit off for some reason. I don't fully understand what this actually does, but it definitely feels very, very odd compared to these 2 settings. So give those a change, but obviously, like I said, it's subjective as well. This one might feel the best for you. I don't think it will for most people, because most shooters are these 2 settings here, but regardless, give them all a try and just see which one works the best for you. Now next up we have this setting here, which is the controller binds and the preset. Now yours will automatically be set to equipment wheel. This is the default settings in the game. This is yet again a little bit subjective, as this whole kind of video is, to be honest. It is down to what you prefer. What I would recommend though is setting this to directional equipping. This default settings means that you will have to open the equipment wheel, and what I mean by that is that obviously if I want to pull out my grenade here, I'd have to press L1, and then from here I can select all of these, and I can also select my weapon as well. Now that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think that works completely fine. However, what I will say is that if I change this setting and put it to the directional equipping, what you'll see when I go back into the game is that pressing triangle, and you can see this all down in the bottom right to give you a better example, but pressing triangle will pull up my weapon. Pressing left on the D-pad will then pull out my grenade. pressing down will be the middle gadget, and then right to be the right gadget. So it is obviously just a little bit easier. You don't have to pull up your whole ass freaking equipment wheel if you're in a pinch and you just need to throw a grenade. Let's just say I'm running around shooting an enemy. I need to throw a grenade in that door. Bang, I can just do that really quick. Switch back to my weapon, keep firing. It's just a lot easier to do that way. And so I would definitely recommend that setting, because at least for me, out of all of these ones, and there are a few other options there too for you guys to look through, but at least for me, this is the one that makes the most sense and is the most fluid when it comes to your gameplay. Now, the next one that I've got here is actually a keybind, and this is something that I say in every single game that I have essentially ever played when it comes to a shooter, is that you want to change a few of these settings to be a little bit more fluid, like I just said, when it comes to the gameplay. Now, the first ones that I've actually changed, and this is more just subjective, so you guys don't necessarily need to do this, but I put my specialization, meaning essentially the gadget or the specialization of my class, to L1 instead of R1, and then I put my ping to R1. The reason for that is essentially that is just more in line with other games that I've played, so it feels more comfortable for me, but obviously you guys can keep that the way that it was. I believe those are just switched when it is on the default settings. The key one that I would definitely change though is these two. You can see that I've actually got circle here, or this will obviously be B on Xbox, and then crouch and slide is R3. These will be flipped by default, so R3 will be to melee, and then circle or B will be to crouch, and you'll want to switch these around. You want to set this to circle or B if you're on Xbox, like I said. What this is going to do is that it will allow me to keep all of my movement in terms of crouching, sliding in the right stick, so I don't have to take my finger off and, for example, press circle to crouch. I can just do it all with the right stick. That means that I can also press it and slide at the same time. So I can actually turn a corner, for example. I can run around this corner and be sliding while aiming, instead of having to like take my finger off. I'd have to crouch then aim. That is the issue that you get when you actually have that set to circle or B. So definitely give those two settings a change. This is generally referred to as tactical sticks in pretty much most other shooters you'll play, Call of Duty, Battlefield and stuff like that. I'm not too sure why this isn't the default, and honestly, once you change this, you will never go back. So definitely give this a try. It'll take a little bit to get the hang of for sure, and you may die a few times because you're trying to crouch, for example, and you're just punching the wall or something. But once you get the hang of it, I promise you guys, you will never ever want to go back. Now, moving over to the audio tab, what I'll say, these are obviously all subjective, but I'll just say, take a look at them and change them to what you think works for you. For example, even though the music in this game is actually kind of lit, I'm not going to lie, I have it turned down just to 30, just so it's not overbearing in a game. If there's music going on, you know, at the end of the game, when it's sort of announcing the game is getting towards the end, I don't want that to be overbearing. So I've turned that down to 30. You can still very clearly hear it, but it's just not overbearing at all. I've kept the sound effects up to 100 because that's the important stuff: gunshots, footsteps, explosions, all that kind of thing. That is the sound effects. And then I've just turned the dialogue down just a little bit, just so that, again, it's not overbearing. I can still very clearly hear what the announcers are saying. If they're giving me a warning that the game's nearly done or something like that, I can still hear it, but it's just not like too loud to where I'm going to lose footsteps and lose track of my enemy, for example. Now, lastly, for the audio tab, I would recommend turning night mode on. What this will do is bring all of your audio levels kind of to the same level. That means that really quiet sounds are going to be a little bit louder, and then really loud sounds, for example, an explosion, is not going to be so damn loud in your ears. It just kind of compresses that audio and brings it all to roughly the same level. Now, not only is this really good to prevent essentially ear rape if there's a bunch of explosions going on and you've got your headset up really loud, for example, but it's also really good when it comes to hearing footsteps, because generally speaking, footsteps are a relatively quiet audio cue, yet with this turned on, it feels as though they are much louder. You can get a better picture of where your enemies are, and so it is very, very good for that footstep audio. So give that a try. It may kind of sound a little bit weird, like I said, with a lot of these other settings. You may not like it, but it is 100% worth trying at the very least. Now, last but not least, we have got the video tab, and this is the field of view. This is one that I also go over in every single shooter that I play. Not gonna lie, I can't remember what the default was. I believe it was maybe 70. The reason I turned this up, and you can see it clearly here, it's really good that they've actually got a transparent settings background here where you can actually see the gameplay behind you. As you can see over on the right of the screen there, I can only see sort of the edge of that house. It's only that wall that I can see, but as I move this up, I can actually see the other side of the wall. And if it went up just a tiny bit further, I could actually see almost around the sort of edge of that building. And if there was an enemy peeking me from there, then I can see them on my screen. So the reason you want to turn your field of view up is you can essentially just see more on your screen. If I go and zoom this in even further, as you can see, now we can barely see that tree just to the right of screen there, which by default was borderline getting towards the freaking middle of the screen, and it definitely just allows you to get more information on your screen. And this is one setting that I do think a lot of people don't like, simply because it does look weird. Don't get me wrong, this is a kind of weird fisheye where if you don't play in a higher field of view, it kind of looks a little bit odd, to be honest. But like I said, if I'm looking in this door, for example, I'm looking in this direction, as you can see over on the right of my screen, I can see that guy coming around the corner. Perfect timing there from my AI friend. However, as I go through the settings, if this is turned down to the default, I can't see around that building, and therefore there could be someone there looking at me, just about to shoot me, and I simply can't see them there. So definitely change this one. It'll take a little bit to get used to, and obviously if you're on PC, this may affect your performance a little bit. I played with this on 100 on both Xbox and PS5 now, and I haven't had any frame drops or anything like that. So turn this all the way up if you can. If not, even down to 90 or something like that is worth trying. But regardless, this is definitely one of the more important settings you want to change in any shooter that you play. So those are all the settings you should be changing, or like I said, at the very least, looking into and giving them a try in the finals. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe and turn on those notifications. There is plenty more content coming on this game, plenty of tips and tricks and all that kind of thing, so make sure you don't miss out. But with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and I'll catch you all out there in the arena.